today in Module 3, basically we have two major parts in Module 3. First, we're going to talk about the unmanned aircraft system as a whole, and then we will narrow our focus and talk about the first major component of the unmanned aircraft system, which is the unmanned aircraft vehicle. All right, so the four major components of the unmanned aircraft system are the aircraft, the ground control station, the payload, and the operator. All right, and so over the next 4 weeks, we're going to dive into each of these components of the unmanned aircraft system. The overall goal for these next modules is to discuss how all these UAS components work together to accomplish the UAS mission. All right, so introduction to Module 3. So we'll look at, like I said, number one, we'll look at an overview of UAS, and then number two, we're going to dive into the UAV. All right, so what is an unmanned aircraft system, UAS? It's really simply a tool, a set of components working together to operate an unmanned aircraft vehicle to perform a task or a mission. All right, so UAS component number one, the unmanned aircraft vehicle. So what's the difference between a UAS and a UAV? UAS describes the entire system. So when you hear the term UAS, what we're talking about is the four major components of a UAS, right? So humans being one of them. So if we're a remote pilot operating a UAV, we are part of the UAS. UAV specifically talks about an aerial vehicle, so the drone itself. Arguably, the Hubsan X4, here's the UAV, right, where if I want to talk about the UAS, I would pull out the hand controller. I'd have to use myself, and also point out the little camera, right? So the payload itself is one of our UAS components. Okay, so while we introduce broad topics, to talk about the aircraft in the last module, here we'll look at individual elements that comprise the airframe component. All right, so what are our objectives for this module? So gain an understanding of the main components of the UAS. All right, we'll do that here in the next 2 slides. We'll go over the major components. But mostly what we want to do here in Module 3 is really dive into how does the UAV work with the UAS, and then how does the UAV work, period? You know, how does it work that when I tell the UAV to pitch forward and fly forward, how does that command from my thumb make my aircraft actually pitch forward and fly?